All right, we are good. I would give it 10 seconds just to load up and
So you're gonna
then
say we're live and then I start talking?
yeah. Okay. You can go ahead, LaSandra.
Okay, thanks, Zach. So welcome to this episode, this week's episode of What's the Tea? We're doing an episode a week at South Suburban Family Shelter, in which we are having a guest from different programs at the agency come and talk about their self. You get a chance to learn more about our staff as well as our programs, and you get a chance to hear about the tea. And we're spilling the tea today with Kyisha McLemore, and she's going to introduce herself. She is the medical advocacy program coordinator. So we're going to learn more about Kyisha and more about the medical advocacy program. So if you guys want to take a moment to share this video, feel free to share the video, like it, love it. Also, feel free to drop some questions in the chat or the comment section, and we're going to answer your questions at the end of the interview. So, Kyisha, before we get started, what tea do you have today?
I have red clover tea.
What is it called?
Red clover is
Red clover.
it's a detox tea. So
A
that's
detox tea. Okay. It's good. Is it like sweet or is it?
it's very detoxy, but I did add some honey in it to
Okay.
the sweetness. So
Okay.
and yeah, they said it's made from hibiscus plant.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So I have a Lipton tea, which is I think it's a passion fruit green tea.
That
I've
sounds
been drinking this. It's good. It's
passion.
really good. Yes, you should try this. It's
Okay.
really good. So yeah, we're spilling the tea, and we have Zach today as our tech guy. So he is going to keep the time and also do our comments for us. So thanks to Zach. And so let's get down to it. So Kyisha, thank you first of all for being our guest this week and just taking the time to talk to us. I'm LaSandra. For everyone that doesn't know, I am the community outreach specialist at South Suburban Family Shelter, and Kyisha and I are actually real life friends. And we met what,
Ooh,
18 years ago, right? It's been a long time.
we were kids.
We were kids, we were babies. And so yeah, it's been amazing having a friend and then coming into this work and having someone that you actually know, to also become colleague in this work. So that's been pretty amazing. So tell us a little bit about what you do at the agency. What's your role? And just kind of in short, what is the medical advocacy program and what's your role?
Well, the medical advocacy program, we're located in three area hospitals. And what we do is we're in the ER at Olympia Fields Hospital, and we screen all individuals, as many as we can, to possibly see if they are a victim of domestic violence, if it's current or if it's in their past. And we also are there to educate individuals in the community. So
Mhm.
that's what we do. My position as the manager or coordinator is to make sure we get to keep those partnerships that we have and develop new partnerships, and to be a spokesperson for our department and those that my staff that's actually in the hospital setting working.
Okay. Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So I would imagine that with the pandemic going on, your job has been impacted greatly. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that question. But let me ask you first, what brought you to this work? Like what has brought you?
Well, it was so funny. I went to school for human service, and previous before that, I was in the teaching field.
Mm,
And when it got down to my teaching part of it, I realized I homeschooled my girls, and that part didn't allow me to do the teaching classroom setting. So I went to my academic counselor and I told them I need to change my major, and she suggested that I do human service. Human service is a broad field. And so once I went into that field, once I graduated, I still didn't know what area that I wanted to do. And 2 years later, you made a post after I graduated. And and it said you enjoyed the job that you have and the work that you do. And I immediately inboxed you like, what are you over there doing? Because I need this job. And you sent me all the particulars and what it was. And I was like, this job is exactly what I want to do. I love helping people. It's right in the area. It works great with me homeschooling my girls. And that started me on the road of the domestic violence track. But I always love helping people. So it was in my major. And so that's what led me here with South Suburban Family Shelter, was a post that you posted.
That's awesome.
Right?
Awesome. We got a pretty dynamic story going here. For those of you guys that don't know, I was a medical advocate in 2014, 2015 with South Suburban Family Shelter. And I put a post about it one day on Facebook, and that's what Kyisha's referring to. She saw the post and just was completely motivated and asked me, what are you doing? And I knew she'd be a great medical advocate at the time. And so she's now the coordinator of that program. So it just speaks to like her leadership ability. I knew that she would be great because you were such an entrepreneur and a very organized person and a very compassionate person. And so I knew that you'd be amazing as a medical advocate. So, and that has proven true. And so I think that it's important to kind of just shine the light on the fact that a lot of different people come to this work for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And I think the people that may have watched this video may be maybe thinking about doing some type of domestic violence work at an agency similar to ours or volunteering in this capacity. And so I love your story because really you were a full-time mom. Yeah, you're a full-time homeschool mom. Yeah, and you had a lot of side hustles and a lot of side businesses. But this work, and because of the agency's commitment to work-life balance, you were able to do it. You were able to do it all. So
it just fit with the puzzle of everything that I needed. With it being close by, with it just being able to, I can make my own schedule at the it was flexible, and I was like, this is a job. I didn't even know they had a job like that out here. And so just for you to post that post and me to stumble on it and to be offered the position, and like you said, to thrive in it and to have the compassion and passion to do it, mm-hmm. It just went uphill from there.
Yeah, wow. So that's awesome. Can you kind of begin to unpack the role of a medical advocate? Because I think a lot of people don't know what medical advocates in domestic violence actually do. So what is a day in the life of a medical advocate? What are they doing? What are they seeing?
So it's always different because you're in the ER or you're in the medical setting. So you can be exposed to different traumas that come inside of the ER, outside of domestic violence. And so those are other exposures that we are exposed to. But the training that we have, the ladies that I have are so awesome. They're great. They're great with what they do. And we're there to work with medical staff, to also train them and to inform them different signs and triggers of domestic violence. Some of those signs that individuals may not even be aware of because we're used to seeing the black eye, the bruises. What about those internal scars? The patient is not sleeping. She may have been strangled and have headaches and keep coming into the ER. So we're there for that. So in a setting, it could be quiet one moment and then it could be hectic the next. So what we're trained to do is to stay out of medical staff way so that the patient can actually be seen for what they're actually there for. And once the medical staff, doctors, nurses, and techs have entered the room, then we keep an eye on to see if it's a possible chance for us to go in and maybe screen that individual.
Okay.
You want to go ahead?
No, well, I think that in order, obviously what you're describing, it takes a level of savviness. There's a finesse to being a medical advocate. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because there's strategy.
Yeah.
this.
And
Yeah.
so what we do is the FBI rapport. So what we do is when we go in, we try to build a quick rapport with individuals because we don't want to just go in and say, hi, I'm with domestic violence agency. Who you're just meeting this individual. So everybody has their way of doing it. Some people use statistics. Some people are more casual with it and then they do it. So it all depends on how you do it. It's based on your personality, I would like to say. So the way I do it is I go in and I try to find something that we have in common. You know, it could be some jewelry, it could be some makeup, it could be lip gloss or anything in that particular nails done, or, you know, if it's a guy, you know, just trying to find something unfamiliar that we can discuss. And that's how I break the ice, use the icebreaker.
Okay. Okay. Um, do you guys ever run into a situation where, I know the answer, but do you run into a situation where the abuser is in the room or close by? And if so, then what do you guys do to navigate that?
Yeah, actually, we do run into where the abuser is there, and we're trained. When there is someone with an abuser, we never scream. So what we do is we always ask, "Who are you here with?"
Okay.
And they would say, "This is my husband." If it's an intimate partner relationship, we don't scream. But if the individual is left in the room alone, then we will come back and try to screen that individual.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're very careful.
What would you say is the most impactful story or moment that you've had as a medical advocate or as the program coordinator?
I would say the most impactful one was when you do this work, you're in the community, and I ran into an individual that I had helped. In fact, it's the individual that you had actually when I had my first intake, and I didn't, you know, I was nervous, and you came up to the hospital with me. I don't know if you remember doing that.
Yes, I remember this. Are you kidding me? You ran into this person again?
I ran into this person again, and she stopped me and said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I did not remember her first. And she reminded me that we helped her, in fact, get services and that she was out of the relationship. And that was that was a rewarding conversation and time for me.
I did, for the record, I did not know this, everyone. I'm just hearing this. So just to, so tell us the story. What happened? Like
um, soon as I got done with my training, I had an intake and I was very unsure of the process of the intake. So I called LaSandra and asked her to help me with the intake. And she so kindly came up to the hospital that I was at to help me do the intake in person. And just to watch you, LaSandra, do it, it gave me the confidence to know that I can do it on my own. And that same lady, years later, came back to me and reminded me.
That's actually crazy. That's unbelievable. You know what? I'm taken aback. I didn't know you were going to say this. So, Kyisha, you know, I think that, and let me just say this about this work. I feel like it really speaks to the fact that you labor with people in this work. I mean, that's really what the story shows, is that it's not just you and I, but when you work at an agency like this, you're on the front lines and you labor with the people. Because we stayed late. It took a long, I remember we were there late. You called me, I was on 57. I got off of the expressway and was like, I will come right now. Let's do it.
And
So,
we put her in the cab and everything. Remember, we put her in the cab and we didn't know. We didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue what we were doing. I'm like, this is my first intake. And I was like, oh God.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you saw her again. I, as a medical advocate, heard a lot of stories from people who had been impacted by the work of South Suburban Family Shelter, and by medical advocates specifically who were now safe and out of the relationship. And they were excited to see me there in the hospital, which just always reiterated to me that what we were doing was impactful, it mattered, it was changing and saving lives. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So with that, we're in this pandemic, obviously. I know that the medical advocacy program has been impacted in huge ways. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your work has been impacted during this time?
Absolutely. As soon as the pandemic started, we were not able to go back into the hospital setting and work with individuals one-on-one, and as well as with our medical staff and medical partners. And we've been at home. So what we have been doing is contacting our medical sites, letting them know that we're still here, giving them our hotline number, our court number, and our counseling number, just in case if they run into victims, what they can do is call these numbers and give them the support that they need at that time.
Okay, awesome. What has been the most challenging aspect of that shift?
For me and my staff, the most challenging, because we know that since the pandemic, domestic violence has had a peak and a spike. And normally where we would see patients and help them with that information that they need, we're not there to help them. So that's been very heavy on our hearts. And so with that, we've tried to come up with other ways to meet the needs of those in our communities as well.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any, let's say, like new innovative ideas that have come out of this problem solving and trying to mitigate the situation?
Absolutely. So before this, we were trying to see what other avenues we can come into or what other ways or we can partner with other individuals. So we're partnering with homeless shelters to see if we can get paying out for domestic violence. My staff have contacted villages and police stations and you name it, schools, college campuses, trying to get partnerships so that we may potentially be able to sit in on those settings and maybe spread it out to other departments within our agency as well.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think it takes a lot of seeing an obstacle as an opportunity for growth, like keeping that in mind. It takes a lot of it takes a certain mindset, I think, to be resilient in this time. So it's amazing that you guys have been able to do that with all
Yeah,
this going on.
it's very hard and very rewarding, and it's something we miss our doing what we normally do, but we know that we need to come up with another way to be resourceful in this time.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you in terms of this question, and then we're going to go to Zach and see if there's any questions in the comment section. But before we do that, I know that because medical advocates work on the front lines, you hear a lot of stories, and like you talked about, you're also impacted by the trauma going on in the emergency room. And so, like, I remember as a medical advocate being in there when someone lost their son who was like 3 years old, and where a woman lost her husband, and just kind of being around like death and car accidents and overdoses. You're impacted because you're there. How have you personally, and then how do you support your staff in processing through all of that and the trauma that you're exposed to?
Well, how we handle the vicarious trauma, it's not so much, we're pretty used to like the domestic violence part of it. So when we do have to deal with the vicarious trauma of the outside traumas, I'm there as a support for my staff whenever they want to call. They can call another advocate to discuss and to so that we can get it off our chest. And we also have our monthly meetings, and we also share cases there as well. And I like to call it "What Would You Do?" And so other advocates can brainstorm and to let that other advocate know what they did was correct and to reassure them. And, so that's how we deal with it and cope with it.
So you're a supportive community for each other, really, in processing through. Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so Zach, are there any comments in the comment section for Kyisha?
We have 12 comments and 2 questions, but I think you were ahead on the first one, which was, what are some ways that you and your staff stay healthy to support your self-care? And I know you pretty much had just touched on that.
I can
A
add
second,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
I also strongly suggest that my staff take time off to recuperate, whether that's vacationing, whether that's just a day off, or scheduling themselves, or they can have a week off as well, just to give themselves a break as far as the trauma that's going on.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. It looks like we're getting a few more questions coming in. Another one here. Do you find it that victims are surprised to learn that the services are available to them, even when their domestic violence situation was years ago?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Once we tell them that it can happen 20 years ago, 25 years ago, because we also let them know medically, you could have been strangled 25 years ago, and this headache is still coming from that strangulation from 25 years ago. And these are the signs that we let victims know, and we let them know that you can get counseling services because most victims can recall the trauma just like it happened today or yesterday. And so we strongly suggest that they get counseling for that.
That's amazing, Kyisha. I think that also speaks to the fact that our services, the agency provides trauma-informed care. And so just like what you're saying, realizing that something physical like a headache could be the result of domestic violence 20 years ago, because all of us is impacted, or our whole body, mind, spirit, soul, health, all of it is impacted by trauma. And it can show up in any way. So I think that's like really speaks to that point and why that's important. That's amazing.
Okay. Looks like we've got two more questions. Do you often see children at the medical facilities that you visit?
Well, we don't see children, but if we do, it's a process that we have to go through. So if it's, because since we're in a medical staff, if it is for abuse, then medical staff would most likely potentially call DCFS in those cases. But we do have individuals, parents that are in domestic violence. And once we do go into a room, we ask them if it's okay for us to talk to them about it in front of their children in a discreet way. And if it's not, then we do a lot of pointing. We have these white cards that we have. I wish I would have had them with me so I could kind of show you. And we do a lot of pointing and asking them if it's okay. But other than that, no, we don't. We don't talk to anyone that's under 16. So if you're 16 or older, we'll talk to you.
And can victims contact you outside of the medical setting?
Unfortunately, no. What we do is we're a one-touch base, so it's very rare that we run into survivors after we have done our screening process with them. So pretty much we give them the contact information to our hotline number and our counselors and to our court advocates. And after that, that's the only part that sometimes we don't know once we leave that individual if they're going to actually take additional services, or most of the time we're the only services that they get at that time.
Thank you. And questions keep coming in. Do we have some time to take a few more?
Yes.
Okay. So if a victim can't talk to you when they're in the medical room, what do you leave them for later contact?
Well, if a victim can't talk to me while they're in the medical site, I'm also working with the medical staff. And lots of times medical staff will send them for a test to get them away, where they can be alone. And during that time is when we can screen them. And then I always make sure I ask them, is it absolutely safe for me to give them any type of materials, because it can be life-threatening for them. And I stress that very strongly. This could be life-threatening for you. Is it safe for you to take this information? And if it is safe for them to take it, then we'll give it to them. So medical staff works great with us.
Awesome. And I know maybe you touched on it slightly in the beginning, but not everyone was in the live stream. So do you have a favorite happy ending story about someone that you screened?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just sharing with LaSandra the first intake that I had, where she in fact came and helped me. The young lady saw me years later, and she had gotten the help that she needed. And it was just so rewarding for me as an individual, because I had no clue what I was doing at the time either. So just to know that she got the help that she needed was very rewarding.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to hand this back over to LaSandra.
Okay, thanks so much, Zach. And so, Kyisha, I think that this has been a great interview. I hope that people have learned a lot about you as a professional and as a domestic violence advocate, and then also about the medical advocacy program. I think that there's just like some powerful points that you touched on. Are there any final thoughts that you wanted to share about medical advocacy, or anything that you want to make sure that the community understands or knows?
Well, I would like to stress that I have a staff of 10 wonderful ladies. I love my staff. You know how most, I love my ladies that I work with. We are a team. We work together very well. We see the most individuals within our agency. We come in contact with the most individuals. And we want to keep that strong community outreach within our communities.
Yeah.
And I just love the work that we do. And we love the work that we're doing, because most of us, we're doing it to make a difference. A lot of my staff, this is their part-time job. So they do have 2 jobs, in fact. And for them to come in and to do the work that they do and the dedication that they do on a second job is awesome. And so I just want to let my ladies know that I love you guys and keep the hard work that you do up.
That's awesome. So we want to thank everyone for joining us for this episode of What's the Tea. Please share this video. You can share it with someone who you think is very interested in this topic, or just share it with your community, your family, friends. Join us next week. We'll be back with another episode of What's the Tea at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. So join us again. And we want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you, Kyisha.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure too. Full circle, right?
Full circle. All right. Thanks.
Bye.